On January 3, 2026, a single airport processed 324,000 passengers in one day. That's more people than the entire population of Iceland, passing through one building in 24 hours. But here's what nobody tells you about that number. It wasn't just a transportation milestone. It was a demonstration of geopolitical power. 3 airports, 3 cities, 3 nations that figured out something the rest of the world is only beginning to understand. That, in the 21st century, the most powerful piece of infrastructure a country can own isn't a military base. It's an airport. This is not a video about aviation statistics. It's about power. Specifically, a new kind of power that international relations scholars call geoeconomics, the use of economic infrastructure to achieve geopolitical objectives. For centuries, nations projected power through military capability. Navies controlled trade routes, armies controlled territory. But in a world where 4.7 billion passengers fly annually, where $6 trillion in cargo moves by air every year, and where a business deal can hinge on whether 2 cities are connected by a direct flight, the nation that controls the connection points controls something far more valuable than territory. It controls access. And access, in the modern world, is power. Let's start with Dubai. Dubai International Airport handled 95.2 million passengers in 2025. That's the highest international passenger throughput of any airport on Earth for the 3rd consecutive year. But how did a city in the desert, with no natural resources, no large domestic population, and no colonial history of global trade, become the world's most connected aviation hub? Geography is part of the answer. Within an 8-hour flight of Dubai sits approximately 80% of the world's population. No other major city on Earth occupies a comparable position on the global flight map. But geography alone doesn't build the world's busiest airport. Strategy does. The UAE made a series of deliberate choices. It created Emirates Airline, a state-backed carrier that channels passenger flows from hundreds of secondary cities through Dubai. Cities that would otherwise have no direct international connections. Emirates doesn't just serve demand. It creates demand, and the ambition doesn't stop there. A new airport facility, Al Maktoum International, is currently under construction at a cost of $35 billion. When complete, it will be the largest airport in the world, capable of handling 260 million passengers annually. 260 million. The geopolitical implication of this strategy is significant. When airlines route their networks through Dubai, when passengers build their travel patterns around Emirates connections, when cargo supply chains depend on Dubai's freight infrastructure, the UAE acquires leverage that extends far beyond aviation. That leverage is called soft power, and Dubai has more of it per square kilometer than almost any nation on Earth. Now consider Singapore, a city-state of 5.9 million people. No natural resources, no strategic depth, no significant domestic market. By every conventional measure of national power, Singapore should be irrelevant on the global stage. And yet, Changi Airport concluded 2025 with an all-time high of nearly 70 million passenger movements. Approximately 100 airlines operate over 7,300 weekly flights from Changi, connecting Singapore to more than 170 cities globally. Singapore's Prime Minister has described Changi's hub status not as a commercial asset, but as a matter of national survival. That language, national survival, applied to an airport, tells you everything you need to know about how Singapore thinks about aviation. For Singapore, Changi Airport is not transport infrastructure. It is the physical manifestation of a national strategy to make Singapore so indispensable to global flows of people, goods, and capital that no actor, however powerful, can afford to exclude it. International relations scholars call this complex interdependence, creating so many overlapping channels of connection that disrupting any one of them becomes prohibitively costly for everyone involved. In the second quarter of 2025, Changi handled 516,000 tons of air freight, a 6.2% year-on-year increase. Aviation, cargo, finance, and trade bundled together into a package of connectivity that is extraordinarily difficult to replicate elsewhere. And when regional conflict disrupted Middle Eastern airspace in 2026, when Dubai's hub model faced sudden pressure, Singapore Airlines and Changi Airport emerged as the primary beneficiaries, absorbing displaced traffic, positioning itself as the safe haven hub of the Asia-Pacific region. Small state, enormous strategic intelligence. And then there is Istanbul. If Dubai represents geography monetized and Singapore represents the small state's strategic multiplier, Istanbul represents something more explicitly geopolitical. Turkey sits at the intersection of Europe, the Middle East, North Africa, and Central Asia. Within a 4-hour flight radius lies a market of over 1.5 billion people. Istanbul Airport served 84 million passengers in 2025. 35.7 million of them were transfer passengers, travelers who never entered Turkey. They simply passed through. On June 19, 2025, Istanbul Airport surpassed Frankfurt to become the world's most connected airport, serving 309 destinations across more than 110 countries. More connected than Heathrow, more connected than Charles de Gaulle, more connected than any airport in the United States. Turkish Airlines flies to more countries in Africa than any other carrier on Earth. Think about what that means strategically. Turkey maintains routes to destinations that Western carriers have abandoned, for commercial reasons, for political reasons, for reasons of risk calculation. That network breadth is commercially motivated. But geopolitically, it gives Ankara access and influence in markets where purely diplomatic instruments would be insufficient. Istanbul Airport is not just infrastructure. It is an extension of Turkish foreign policy, operating at 35,000 feet. But here's where the story gets more interesting. This competition is not static. It is intensifying. China's civil transport airports handled 1.53 billion passenger trips in 2025. Beijing is investing heavily in international aviation connectivity as part of its Belt and Road Initiative, building and financing airports across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. India's aviation sector is expanding at a rate that will make it one of the world's largest markets within a decade. Delhi is targeting 100 million passenger capacity by 2030. As these new players expand their networks, a fundamental question emerges. Will they route through existing hubs in Dubai, Singapore, and Istanbul, or will they build direct connections that bypass them entirely? The answer to that question will reshape the distribution of geoeconomic power in global aviation for the next 50 years, and it will be decided not by military force or diplomatic negotiation, but by infrastructure investment, carrier strategy, and the quiet accumulation of connectivity. The next great power competition will not be fought only in the South China Sea or in orbit. Some of its most consequential battles will be decided in departure terminals and control towers, by the nations that understand, better than their rivals, that the airport is not merely a gateway, it is an instrument of power. If you found this analysis valuable, the full written version, with data sources, international relations theory references, and deeper geopolitical context is available at aerospaceheadlines.com. Link in the description below. This is Deal Altitude, examining the business and infrastructure decisions that shape global aerospace power, published on Aerospace Headlines. If this kind of analysis is what you've been looking for, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.